Welcome back to Ralph Pinson's podcast, where ancient wisdom meets modern man. Today's episode was sponsored in honor of the complete Refuah Shalema for Shneir Zalman HaKayin ben Elisheva. Today's episode is the 23rd in our Q&A series.
So Hisbonenut, which is not to be confused with Hisbonenut, is spoken about at length, especially in Chabad Hasidus. And the question is, how does one gain hegemony over scattered thoughts?
So let's reduce the question to a very tachlis, a very poignant way of saying this. The question is really like this: how do we gain control of our thoughts? Is there a way to become mindful, to gain control of our thoughts? That's the question. How do we gain mastery over our thoughts? Is it possible? Because it doesn't seem like we do have that, which means it seems like we think something and then. So how do we gain some type of, kavana, intention, that we have intentional thoughts, that our thoughts are controlled? So what's interesting is that, just in general, this is an interesting observation, is that in the development of all chacham satava, worldly wisdom, a little bit that we spoke about before, but this idea is that first, the sciences of astronomy and astrology, which in those years back, they were both linked very together, was discovered way thousands of years before psychology, which means man was always interested in finding something very, very distant than discovering something that's very, very intimate. It's much more exciting, much more exotic to talk about, the planets than to talk about your own emotions. But this is like the development, and it's only very, very recently, even almost 100 years after the beginning of really psychological insights, that science is actually interested in the brain, the mechanism of the brain, to try to understand the brain. But that's really where it starts. Everything's going to start with our mind, and therefore, really, that's the most important place to start. So let's just think about what this is. So there's, besides the fact that we live in a generation that probably the biggest problem that people deal with, the ill of this generation, is the idea of scatteredness. The people have scattered brain. Distracted. Exactly. It's a distracted world. Everyone's distracted. People walking down the street, they're not conscious of what they're walking because their eyes are on a phone. It's a complete distraction. And this is and really we have to try to gain some type of control. The nature of the mind, we'll call it the nature of machshava. Machshava is the thought process, or the mechanism to think. The nature of machshava, of thoughts, is the machshava mishetetas tamid. The nature of thoughts is that it's continuously thinking. We always have a continuous thoughts. Now it could be nonsense, but there's continuous thoughts that are occurring. This idea of machshava mishetetas tamid is a language, is a phrase that you find now. It's a kodesh me'agabai, as a practice, that a person mishetetas tamid, a person's always think about Hashem. But later in Chassidic discourses, certainly Chabad, the idea of mishetetas tamid means that that's the nature of the mind. The nature of the mind is that it always has to think a thought. It's important to understand this. Okay, that's one important point. That it's always thinking. The mind is never idle. It could be thinking idle thoughts and empty thoughts. You could be thinking about bubbles, but it's going to be thinking. Whatever, if that's considered thinking, it's going to have some type of thought process. Another important thing to understand, just to try to understand the mechanism of how thoughts work, is that it's impossible to have two thoughts simultaneously. So this is actually a phrase from the Ravid writes this in Echos Parak, Perek Zayin Gimel. The Ravid writes, "Ein adam choishev shnei machshavas biyachad." A person cannot think two thoughts together. It's impossible to think two thoughts, which means when you're thinking a thought, either you're thinking this thought or you're thinking another thought. But to have this, and it can come in very quick succession, one thought after the next. That's mashetetis. It can move from one thing to the next. But you're not having two simultaneous thoughts together. The Meir also writes this in Gittin, and the Kunsacher and Archaim Pei Ayin Gimel. So this is the idea of that there's two thoughts cannot happen together. So thoughts are continuous, which means there's always a stream of thoughts. You're thinking one thought, and it's impossible to have two of the exact same thoughts together. So every single moment is a new thought. Sort of. We'll understand this in a second. Okay. Now, most people think that they choose their thoughts, which means I'm choosing to have this thought, whether it's consciously or not consciously, but let's say if it's consciously, I'm choosing to have this thought, and therefore I'm thinking this thought. Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. I'm thinking, therefore this is what makes me I am, and I think this is what creates me. But the truth is that thoughts are not created. Thoughts are not mostly chosen by you, but they're forced upon you. I don't know if you're getting all the picture. Yeah, right. So you're not thinking your thoughts. Thoughts are happening to you. Thoughts are happening through you.
They're placed in your mind.
They're placed in your mind. Correct. Something that's called machshavas asus, horse thoughts. Okay, this is the way it's phrased. Machshavas asus. There's other words for this. Other cultures have different. It's the same idea. It's a monkey mind or whatever you want to call it. But this is the idea. What is this? What is machshavas asus? Machshavas asus means that for whatever our understanding of horses, whatever that means, it's that a horse thinks exactly what's right in front of them. So let's say, for example, a person decides they're going to think a thought. They have to think about something. It's a real thought they need to think about. And they know they have to get from their home to shul, or let's say from their home to an office. And it's a 10-minute walk. And they're going to walk it, and they know they have to think something through. They're going to think about this thought. Okay. Whatever the thought is. They walk out of their door, they're holding the thought, right? They're going to think this thought. They start thinking this thought. And they walk outside, and it starts drizzling. It starts raining. So now their thought is broken. I think, oh, it's raining, so what should I do now? I should go back home and get an umbrella. Okay, so they go back home to get an umbrella. Then they think to themselves, where's the umbrellas? Right, this is their thought. I mean, it's not conscious, but this is what their mind is thinking. Where's the umbrella? Oh, the umbrella is downstairs. Okay, so they look for an umbrella. They can only find one umbrella. They take the umbrella. They walk outside. They open the umbrella, and the umbrella is broken. Then they think, why is my umbrella broken? Who broke my umbrella? Oh, I remember that I broke the umbrella. The umbrella was broken because it's really not such a good umbrella. And I bought it because there were two umbrellas that it was selling. One was an umbrella for $10, one was for $5. I only had $5, so I bought the cheaper umbrella, therefore it broke. Why can't I afford the $10 umbrella? This is, you understand, this is happening in your mind. Remember, you're supposed to think that thought. Why can't I have the umbrella? Why can't I afford the $10 umbrella? Because I don't have such a good job. Why don't I have such a good job? Because my boss doesn't pay me. Oh, I really don't like my boss. And you were supposed to think for 10 minutes from the house to the show. Then your mind, you gather yourself and say, wait a second, I'm supposed to be thinking about that thought. So again, you start thinking about that thought. And for 5 seconds, you're holding that thought. All of a sudden, the sirens goes by, and you say, ooh, there's a siren, someone's hurt, or someone, what happened? Look, like it's an ambulance, is that Tzal or not a Tzal? And all of a sudden, and the time you get to shul, you had 1,000 thoughts, and you thought about it with a thought for 2 seconds. So who chose the thoughts? It was chosen for you. Whatever was presented in front of you, that's what your mind thought. You heard a siren, you thought about siren. You saw an umbrella, you thought of umbrellas. You saw rain, you thought of umbrellas. Everything was this, whatever was presented, that's what you thought. Which means who controlled the thought? The external, it controlled what you were going to think. Let me give you 3 scenarios to think about this. Now we'll try to understand this. One is, if I tell you, for example, I want you to look at the cover of the sefer of this book. Just look at the cover for this book for 50 seconds. For 60 seconds, I want you just to have intention only to look at the book. So what's going to happen is, you can try this. You're going to think about, your intention is going to be, okay, I'm looking at the book, and between 5 is already long. If you can get to 5 seconds, between 5 and 7 seconds, you're going to start thinking about something about the book. But I didn't tell you to think about the book, about the book. I told you to think just the book. You're going to start thinking, oh, it's gold lettering. Ah, the gold lettering is nice. Maybe if it had red lettering, it would actually look nicer. How much do you think this book cost? And your mind is going to continuously wander, but it's not going to be thinking just about the book. Okay, that's one scenario. And it's impossible. You tell a person, look at the wall, stare at the wall, at a blank paper, at a white paper for 60 seconds. You can't do it. People can't do it. You think you can, try it. Within 5 seconds, your mind is wandering. And probably some of the thoughts are going to be like, why am I thinking on the white paper? And what am I thinking on the white wall? What am I supposed to be doing? But it's impossible to just focus your attention on this white wall. Most people. More than 4 or 5 seconds, maybe 7 seconds. That's one scenario. Another scenario is, so in that scenario, your mind continuously wanders. Your intention says, think about the book, but your mind is wandering in different directions. So you have this inner dialogue that's happening, right? You're saying, I said, just look at the books. I'm looking at the book. My intention is to look at the book. I'm trying to look at the book, but my mind is jumping from one place to the next. Another scenario is you're upset, not angry, God forbid. You're upset about something, and you're a little bit obsessed about this upset thing that you're upset about. This is, borderlines on anger, but let's say you're upset about something, and you're obsessing about this, and you're thinking about it. For some reason, you feel that if you step back, you'll notice that when you were thinking about this, your mind actually was much more engaged in this thought process. Whatever the thing, let's say someone does something, or you're upset about something, you lost something, whatever it is, your mind is more engaged, even though there were some wonderings, but your intention to hold your intention didn't have to be conscious. It wasn't conscious that you were consciously putting my mind to think about this being upset, but you found yourself more engaged with less wondering. A third scenario is where there is let's say a video of something, a moving image, let's say a film or something. What's a kosher film, let's say. It's something that you want to watch. And it's a short story. And you're very much interested in this topic. You observe the film. It's one story, and your mind is completely focused on that film. It's the same white screen, but now the white screen is being projected with an image. And it's about a half hour, and you realize that in that half hour that you just intentionally looked at that screen, your mind was completely engaged and didn't want to do anything else. You weren't wondering about your job, about your relationships, about anything else. Your mind was completely focused on that thing. What's the difference between these three scenarios? The difference between the first and second scenario is why in the first one, when you just stare at a white blank paper, your intention was you weren't able to focus, versus when you're upset, your mind can focus for longer periods of time. The difference between the first and second is cheshek, is desire, and ratzon, will. You have no cheshek, you have no desire to stare at a wall, to look at a white wall. Even though you want to practice something, but you don't have the cheshek, you don't have a yearning connection to connect with it. You don't have a ratzon, you don't have a strong will to connect to it. So in the first case scenario, there's no cheshek and no ratzon. So 5 seconds is tops. Second scenario, there's a little more cheshek because you're upset about something. So there's a cheshek, there's a ratzon, there's some type of connection that you have to this narrative. So your mind stays a little more focused. This is generally a big teaching, a Torah in the teachings of the Baal Shem, where when you're davening, for example, and you're supposed to have a cheshek and a ratzon to daven, to pray, and all of a sudden some other thought comes into your mind, it must be because the cheshek and ratzon, the desire, is stronger for the things that pop into your head than the things that you're actually focusing. And then the question is, what the Baal Shem said would be, like, why? Why am I having this thought? Because this is an indicator to me, besides Allah Samidus, which is a whole other topic, which is the elevation of the thought itself. Just the fact to notice it tells me that my ratzon and my cheshek, my desire and longing and will, is stronger to those areas than my desire to pray. Otherwise, I wouldn't have those thoughts, right? So cheshek and ratzon focuses our kavan, our intention, our das, towards the machshav that we want to be thinking about. The more cheshek and ratzon we have to something, the more desire and will we have to something, the more we're able to focus on that thing. So when a person is trying to focus on one thing and then another thought comes in, so the Baal Shem says, you have to ask yourself, this must be some sparks that you're connected to. There must be some type of elevation that has to happen. There's some type of part of you that's still connected there, right? Therefore, there's a cheshek and a ratzon, there's a desire to connect to those things. That's the difference between scenario one and scenario number two. The difference between scenario number two and number three, and the reason why three, you can actually sit through the whole thing for a half hour and continuously watch it, is because there's two things. First of all, there's cheshek and ratzon. You have a desire and will to be there. You want to watch it. You're not being forced. You have a big interest in this topic, let's say, for example. But another thing is that there's ischachus. There's constantly renewal, which means you're not looking at a screen that has one image. The image is continuously changing. That's really what a film is, right? It's a lot of quick images put stream together. The images are quickly changing. And the images are changing in a way that there's one thread to the entire idea. So, but each frame is a little bit different. Every moment of the frame is changing a little bit differently. So what you're having is two things. You're having, there's one inyan, there's one idea, but they're streamed together. It's like inyan by inyan. It's like from thing to thing within the thing itself, right? Which means there's one narrative. It's a story about a guy. Let's say it's a very short 3-minute film about a person walking down the street to get to the store.
Like Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah, something like that, right? So you watch. It's only 3 seconds. It's 1 minute. You know he's going from here to here. There's a cheshek. I'm very interested in seeing this. My mind is totally engaged. All I have to see is going from here, and I'm watching. But every single moment there's a ischachus in the frame. If there's a ischachus, if there's a renewal in the image, then the mind is is continuously moving from one thing to the next. It's constantly needs things, but it needs ischachus. It needs renewal. So the mind could see something for 5 seconds, and then if it's presented another 5 seconds, something very similar but a little bit different, the mind can hold its attention. A third thing would be now something very similar but a little bit different, the mind can hold its attention. So the way to practice, let's say this in terms of davening, let's say if a person wants to daven, this is a very simple level of Hisbonenut, of what in the Chabad is called Hisbonenut, which is like contemplation, meditative contemplation. And that's why in Chassidus, in general, in Chassidus, the idea is, let's say you learn a mimer from the Rebbe Hashav, from the Middle Rebbe, one of these long Hamsheich, one of these longer Chassidic discourses. It's me'inyan l'inyan moisin. Me'inyan l'inyan moisin means it's a long hamshech, it's a long conversation. There's one idea that's being expressed, but expressed in many different ways. And every few lines, it's expressed in a different way. What that does, on a very simple level, there's a higher level of Hisbonenut, which is dveikus, of course, to connect to Hashem and to be misyached and go to ayin. It's another conversation. I think the first level of practicing Hisbonenut what will actually do will train you how to control your thoughts, how to control your attention to think through a thought. Because when you practice, now that's not the intent, that's like the lower intention, that's like the side gift that happens when you practice this, is what you're training the mind, the machshava, to move from the inyan l'inyan b'isa inyan. And therefore, every 3-5 seconds, you're saying, I'm thinking about Soiv Kalam. I'm thinking like this idea of Hashem's transcendence of this world. But I'm thinking about it like this, then I'm thinking like this, and then like this, and like this, and like this. Every single moment I'm thinking about it a little bit, tweaking it a little bit differently. Therefore, I can continuously think about it. I have a cheshek and a ratzon. I have a desire, of a longing to be connected to this information. I want to learn it. My mind wants to be there. It's not a blank piece of paper, and it's not even something that I'm being upset, but it's like a film. I'm creating a film, a mental film within my mind, and therefore I can hold my attention. The reason why my attention can be focused, and the reason why I can have focus, is because every 5 to 7 seconds, a new frame is being presented. So it's not something that's unrelated, because that would be this jumping around. It's not jumping around. That would not, you won't get hegemony of your thought process. It would just be it would be, this, and the other thing, and that would create more chaos and more scatterness. but you're learning to a certain type of contemplation, which allows you to move through a thought process from one frame to the next frame to the next frame, but all consistently. If a person, let's say, wants to do this within davening, this is what it says by many tzaddikim write this, that a person should daven, when a person prays, they should take 2-3 words at a time. Baruch atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam. If you can do it. If you can do it. Why? Because what you're doing, just on a very simple level of kavanah, is you're saying, let's say, I'm saying Atachoin Lodam Das. Now I'm thinking about Das. That's my mindset. I'm going into this Das. But what is Das? So I don't want to think about it like a blank sheet of paper. I want to every 3, 5, 7 seconds create another frame. So Atachoin Lodam Das, you Hashem that gives us Das. And give us chachma and das. So every single moment you're moving in the davening, and that's the way a person eliminates machshavas zaros. That's the very simple way how a person could daven a Shemoneh Esrei, can pray a Shemoneh Esrei, complete Amidah for 10 minutes, or 5 minutes, whatever long it takes the Amidah, and to pray without any external things coming up, without any monkey mind and horse thoughts popping up, and you know what I want for lunch in the middle of Hashivena V'inu L'Seresecha. How do you do that? Just don't try to focus on a big thing. Don't try to focus on a very particular thing. Move. Just keep on moving your attention. Reduce
the frame size to smaller
bits. Correct.
And that engages
the
mind.
That's correct.
And keep adding.
Correct. Everything.
A novelty in every few words.
Correct. Every few words you're creating a new novelty, so your mind is constantly engaged. It's moving. It's like flowing through this Shemoneh Esrei. It's okay. Right? So my mind is being fed a novel thought every 3-5 seconds. Therefore, I can continuously move it. I can just flow through everything, and my mind's very engaged. Now, it doesn't mean that you're not going to have any machshavas zaros, because maybe you don't have such chaychach to daven. You don't have such desire, and something else will be more desirable, like maybe I'm hungry, so maybe food will come up. But if you're in the right state, and you have the real chaychach to daven, and you really have the desire, what you have to create is novelty. And the novelty will allow you to move into this state. This is like on a spiritual level how this could be helpful, but of course this is useful for everything in life. Like this is just that a person can have intention. Like if I say I want to be thinking a thought process, okay, so don't just say I want to think about my job. Okay, you're never going to think about your job. You're going to think for 10 seconds. That's it. I want to think about various different variations about my job. I want to think about who I'm working for, what's the people that I'm dealing with, where's the place that I'm working. You understand? Give yourself a list of like 20 things that you want to think about and circulate it.
20 in Yonim
within one topic, and you can even like dot it. You can actually make points if you wish, if you can't do this mentally, or if you can do it mentally, do it 3 things, 5 things. Yeah. And then circulate it. Go back and back. Every 5 seconds. Don't say, I'm just going to think about my boss for 20 minutes. It's not going to work. I'm thinking about my boss for 5 minutes. Do I like him? I think it's good. Okay, how's the job setting this place where I'm working? Is it good for me? Is it not good for me? Am I making enough money to support my family? You understand? Then go back and forth. You keep on circling. You do 3-4 things. Your mind can actually stay engaged in one topic for a longer period of time. And you can create control if you have the cheshek, if you have the real desire to really think about this thought. If by feeding the mind the novelty, these chachas, every few moments, you can stay for longer periods of time, and you can end up thinking about something for 2 hours. I mean, theoretically, that would be tremendous. What you gain by doing this, besides the fact that you gain control of your mind, which is obviously tremendous thing, the most powerful asset, it's also you're able to train, you're able to create the proper interface between you and the world. There's a certain interface. There's the world that's presented to us, and then there's the overlay that we have, which is our perceptions, our thoughts. Like, this is good, this is not so good. There's a certain evaluation, a certain, we look at things and we say, this is what this means, this is what that means. Things really don't mean anything inherently. It means, according to the mindset that a person has. There's the experience itself, and then there's the overlay of the experience, or our interactions with the experience. There's what we lay over the experience. So when a person is able to choose their thoughts, right? Besides everything that we just said now, just the most powerful thing in the world, correct, is when a person is able to choose their thoughts, they can actually create a certain paradigm, a certain prism in their mind that's going to allow them to see the world in a different way. Say, I look at the world in a very negative way. I can tell you why you look in a negative way, besides the fact, whatever, maybe you had some experiences that when you were younger, but because there's a certain narrative that you're telling yourself. The world is not good, the world is going to self-destruct, the people are terrible, whatever that narrative is.
An overlay of hope or an overlay
Correct.
of the opposite.
Of the opposite.
Or a muddied overlay.
Correct.
Of non-clarity.
Not clarity, exactly. But you can choose that. But if I say, I want to have a healthy, spiritual, holy overlay, the way I look at this world. I want to see Eina Mulvade, that only Hashem's transparent light, and I want to see Hashem's presence in everything. Okay, meditate on it. In other words, use the mechanism of the brain, of your mind, of your machshava. Choose a thought every day for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, however long you're going to do this. And that will sort of ingrain you with a new frame, with a new overlay, that all of a sudden you start looking at the world and you're hopeful, and you're filled with emunah, and you're filled with bitachon, and you see the goodness in man, you see the goodness in life, right? You see the tavat hativ, you see the goodness. But you have to work on that. You have to, because if we don't, what I'm saying is, if we don't choose our thoughts, someone or something's going to choose our thoughts for us. It could be situational, it could be experiences. Something's going to affect us, and it's going to choose our thoughts, and therefore that's going to be the screen through which we look at this world. And that's the automatic screen. And what Hisbonenut means on a very simple level, Hisbonenut means this practice of contemplation in this more serious practice is to move within the same topic, to create a certain overlay of a certain prism within our mind, how we look in this world, and that will give us life. All of a sudden we'll look at the world in a different way. So that's the way. It's a simple tool. I mean, it's hard in practice. I mean, you have to do it's a practice. You have to actually do it, but it's simple in a way that this is the way that we actually gain hegemony. We gain control. We gain mastery of our thoughts. So, cheshek and ischachus, desire and novelty, and the recognition that machshava meshet had the stomach. The mind's always going to think, always going to move from one thing to the next.
So subdivide the frames.
So subdivide the frames. It's going to work that way anyways.
Small frames.
Make them small frames and give it what it wants to think about. Choose what you want to think about, and don't think you think two thoughts at the same time, because it's going to move from one thing to the next. So if you're not thinking about this, you're going to be thinking of something else. Choose it, create it, and use it as a way to access your life and to really have proper control of your thoughts.
Amazing. So, two follow-up questions. One would be more of a thought. Is just that perhaps even asking yourself, what am I already thinking about?
Sure.
And then developing from there, because if you already have a cheshek, what do I have a cheshek for?
True.
And then from what you already are interested in this particular moment.
Correct, yeah.
You can then start to build something.
Right. Well, which will be more like what the Baal Shem Tov was saying, right? Baal Shem Tov was saying, recognize, don't push away your chesheks.
Yeah.
Because if the thought is coming, there's something deep that's connected to you. It could be dark, and you have to deal with that. Correct. And root it, and try to figure out what is it? How am I connected to this in a positive way?
So building from where you are, and then number two is just the prerequisite would be make sure your body is taken care of.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
you can't be hungry. So that's why the Gemara says. That before a person eats, it's like you have two hearts, which means, what does it mean two hearts? I'm trying to focus on one thing. Heart is a metaphor for mind. So I'm trying to focus on one thing, but my body is pushing me to another thing. Yeah. So you have to make sure always that, you're sitting in the right place and you're comfortable. You're not cold. You're not hot. You're not tired. You're not too alert. You're like
you went to the bathroom. You
everything exactly.
Make sure your body is
correct.
And not
or in the language of the Baal Shem is you need the consent of the body. In order to do anything, you need the consent of the body. Correct.
Thank you for listening to Rav Pinson's podcast. To submit questions or to sponsor a future episode, please email ravpinsonpodcast@gmail.com. The link is in the description below.